The second incarnation of the Suicide Squad to hit the big screen was full of a number of heavy hitters. Characters like King Shark exhibited insane levels of strength and durability. Polka Dot Man was insanely effective with his abilities. Ratcatcher 2's army of rats were so massive and overwhelming that they were essentially able to take down a kaiju. Bloodsport and Peacemaker were so effective that regular troops were essentially playthings to them, and Harley Quinn even got her time to shine in a number of absolutely brutal ways. Then you have the Weasel, who almost died because swimming is hard. Weasel was a character I was definitely looking forward to seeing in live action just because of how ridiculous he looked in the trailers. I didn't actually know very much about him as a character. Weasel was brought to life by James Gunn's very underrated little brother Sean Gunn, and I expected Weasel to have some type of big, awesome moment. After all, he was deemed effective and brutal enough to be on Task Force X in the first place by Amanda Waller, but it was not meant to be. So it looks like it's up to old Nick in Key Issues to explain how cool Weasel actually is. Today's video is going to cover the comic book history of John Monroe, aka Weasel. Weasel's first comic book appearance was in The Fury of Firestorm issue 35 by Jerry Conway and Raphael Kayanin. His first appearance is fairly minuscule. He's only shown in an interlude looking for files related to a Dr. Martin Stein at the Vandermeer University's records building at night. A guard kinda spooks him and he ends up being brutally attacked by Weasel and killed. This attack is discussed again on the first page of the next issue where you get a better look at Weasel. However, you don't get into the meat of the story until Fury of Firestorm 38. Professor Martin Stein, one half of the Firestorm Matrix along with Ronnie Raymond, arrived at Vandermeer University campus. Stein meets Dean Emily Weiss, and it's explained that he's there replacing a faculty member who was recently murdered. Stein comes to learn that there was a murder spree on campus, and why you would want to go work at Murder University is beyond me, but the pay must be awesome. The Dean and Stein discuss the killings and then they part ways, and I'm kinda gonna skip all of the parts of the comic that have nothing to do with Weasel, just as an FYI. Like there's a scene of Ronnie Raymond and he's in the club, but I'm not gonna discuss that. Stein retires to his apartment where he starts to unwind from the day with a nice hot shower, except the only thing he showered with is attacks from the Weasel, who attacks him. Weasel has broken into his apartment and he's attempting to kill Stein, and he keeps muttering to himself about needing to kill one more person in order to keep himself safe. Stein falls out of the window and he calls for Ronnie Raymond, and the two turn into Firestorm. They return to the apartment to look for clues and they end up demerging, which is like the dumbest thing you can do. As soon as they demerge, they're ambushed, knocked out, and kidnapped by Weasel, who takes them to a smelting plant. When they wake up, they notice that Weasel is about to dump molten steel on them. This is a classic case of a villain making something way too hard. He could have just killed them when they were knocked out, but hey, who am I to judge? However, before they're burned to death by the molten steel, they quickly change into Firestorm, and Weasel's like, no, I'm not dealing with this, and he flees. The two split up again to investigate. Stein returns to his apartment and he has a discussion with Dean Emily, who admits to having hired him due to being attracted to him, which is super shady. And meanwhile, Ronnie breaks into the records room of the university and learns that all of the victims have ties to Stanford University class of 1963, including Stein. While Ronnie is reviewing the info, he's attacked again by Weasel. He summons Stein and they reform into Firestorm. A battle ensues and Firestorm is able to incapacitate the Weasel. They learn that Weasel was actually just a man who also went to Stanford, a particularly unremarkable man who grew to resent them for essentially being unnoticed. This man's name was John Monroe, but Weasel was a nickname that other students called him, or at least this is what the two theorize, as Stein doesn't even remember him. Weasel is taken to jail, presumably to get his haircut fixed because it's terrible even for the 80s, and there he stays for a bit of time. Later, during a one-shot crossover between the Doom Patrol and the Suicide Squad, we learn that Weasel had been incarcerated at Belle Reve Prison and brought into the Suicide Squad by Amanda Waller because of his particular level of bloodthirst. I am not going to discuss the entire comic here because it's long and complicated, but Amanda Waller dispatches the Suicide Squad to rescue Hawk in Nicaragua. The two teams come to blows, and in the process, Weasel ends up slashing the Thinker's throat, killing him. Rick Flag Jr. takes the Thinker's helmet and murders Weasel near the end of the issue after the Thinker's helmet commands him to do it, sort of like a last wish type thing. So at this point in comic book history, Weasel is dead, and he's not seen again until the 2003 event Blackest Night, where he is reanimated as a Black Lantern, or essentially a zombie. Weasel was also briefly shown in the New 52 in a more animalistic state during the event Forever Evil. This crossover event saw the Crime Syndicate, essentially an evil version of the Justice League from an alternate Earth, take over the planet. John, going by Weasel, joined the Menagerie, a group of animal-themed villains who is led by Cheetah. One central theme of this crossover event is that villains and heroes needed to unite to take down the Crime Syndicate and the people that were working for them now. Weasel attempted to ambush Colonel Steve Trevor and Killer Frost. However, Trevor ended up shooting Weasel and Frost froze him in a block of ice. Then Frost proceeded to absorb his energy, replenishing her own, which ended up killing him again. And that is pretty much it for the majority of the important appearances of Weasel within the comics. I hope you guys learned a lot about Weasel in this video, and if you did, let me know what you think of him down below in the comment section. This has been Nick for Key Issues. Thank you guys for watching this video, and remember the motto, Weasel over everything.